Today's robbery put the investigators out of their minds, to the point that they described it as the theft of the century. Our story begins in the year 2006. Robbers with guns broke into an Argentine bank and seized hostages. After several hours of negotiations, the robbers cut off all communication with the police. The building was stormed by special forces. However, they were unable to find anyone. The bank's safe was looted as expected. But what was remarkable was the robbers' disappearance, with no trace of how they got away. This is Argentina's greatest bank robbery. It was a deft and refined robbery. It was carried out by 4 robbers. The first is the operations commander, Fernando Araujo. Sebastian Paulister was the second process engineer. The third person was the financier, Beto Latorre. Louis Silence, the fourth, was the most violent. Along with 2 other people whose identities have not been revealed, one was known as the doctor and the other as the boy. The story begins with Fernando, the operations head and mastermind, who went to a therapist and told him he wanted to rob a bank. The doctor was taken aback. He assumed Fernando was saying this because he wasn't aware of it. The doctor asked as to how he got the idea. Is it because he wants to amass a large sum of money? Fernando responded, No, I don't need money. You know who I am. I'm an artist, and I believe I can create a magnificent work of art in the subject of bank robbery. The psychiatrist asked, what was his plan for carrying out the operation? However, the commander did not provide him with any information. Indeed, preparations for the greatest bank robbery in Argentina's history began. Fernando went out every day during those times. He began cruising the streets of Buenos Aires, Argentina's capital. This is to investigate the operation's potential aims. He did, in fact, come across a bank called Banco Rio. It is one of Argentina's most well-known banks, with branches all over the world. At the time, most wealthy individuals kept their goods, such as money, jewels, and gold, in this bank. As a result, Fernando began to consider several methods for carrying out the operation. The first method is for them to enter the bank with their weapons and steal money from the bank personnel. Then flee swiftly before the cops encircle the area. However, this strategy is extremely dangerous, and the rewards will be minimal. They won't have long to steal the treasury, which is located underground. The second method is to break into the bank while it is closed. This strategy includes digging an underground tunnel that will allow them to safely reach the bank's main treasury. However, this strategy too has a flaw. The bank is outfitted with sophisticated alarm systems. The existence of temperature sensors, which can detect someone within the safe, is also vital. Every method is tough and dangerous. As a result, the leader chose to use the second option. He will construct an underground tunnel. At the very least, if he was successful, he would be able to gain substantial rewards. He began to wonder, how will he be able to dig this tunnel? He initially stated, I will rent a house or a warehouse near the bank, and from there, I will dig a tunnel that will enable me to reach the treasury. However, luck smiled at the leader. He has discovered a solution that will allow him to cut all of this effort in half. One day, while on a reconnaissance mission, he takes note of the sewer holes in the roadway in front of the bank. There was a sewage hole every 10 meters. It also means that there is a sewage tunnel that already exists and runs directly in front of the bank. Fernando started tracing these sewage holes along the street until he reached the sewer's mouth. The mouth, as you can see, is a big aperture located 160 meters from the bank. This is exactly what he had hoped for. He discovered a ready tunnel. Fernando entered the tunnel and began exploring it, but he required the assistance of another person. He will be unable to complete the process on his own. The first person who came to mind was one of his friends named Sebastian, also known as the engineer. He's an electronics and mechanical science expert. The leader expressed the idea to his friend, who was taken aback. This was my reaction when I found you had not subscribed to the channel. Okay, let us return to the story, Fernando. He had no criminal tendencies or experience robbing banks. How did someone like this succeed in robbing one of Argentina's most protected banks? Fernando, on the other hand, said, I have been able to devise a plan that will enable us to reach the treasury with ease, and then you'll be wealthy, my friend. And it was at this point that the engineer began to think carefully about the problem. Especially given his family's history with banks, His father lost all of his valuable money and savings when Argentina's banking system failed not long ago. As a result, the engineer assumed that the bank was the bad guy in the equation. In this regard, he informed Fernando that he would join him in the operation, and so the engineer's role began. He went straight to the sewer tunnel as his first step. He started doing math to figure out where the excavation began. The plan is to excavate a sub-tunnel that will connect to the bank and the sewerage system. Following that, he went to the bank and pretended to deposit the gold there. He was led downstairs by the employee, and it was there that he first saw the treasury. He began taking a series of covert photographs. The engineer was able to determine the number of deposit boxes in the treasury in this manner. But there is one thing we must remember. Fernando and his engineer friend are both new to the world of thievery. And there's something even more significant. The tools that the engineer will create will cost a lot of money. Fernando began looking for a new companion to join them here. For that, he called the doctor, a person whose name has not been revealed. The doctor has contacted the necessary people to assist them with the operation. Beto Latorre was the first to speak. Referred to as a financier, he was a man with a criminal past and prior experience with weaponry. "Can you finance the operation?" Fernando asked. He went on to say, "Honestly, I don't have the money, but I have a truck. I can sell it and finance the operation." As a result, Beto Latorre became the gang's third member. But Fernando needed a fourth person. This individual will be assigned to manual labor. The engineer will be hard at work creating tools. The doctor suggested a fourth member of the group. His name was Louis Silence, and he was known as the Violent. Louis was a tough gang member with vast experience in the field of thievery. He carried out numerous operations and was imprisoned for 15 years. Louis was always willing to use force. Despite this, he was intelligent and skilled at acting and lying. This will be very crucial in the process. The gang is now complete. From there, everyone began planning the operation. However, the engineer asked the commander, "Plans for the bank building?" But the Violent Louis said to them, "I am the one who will take care of bringing it. You don't have to worry about that." He did, in fact, succeed in achieving his goal in an unknown way. Work began, and with the help of the plans, they were able to precisely establish where to dig the tunnel. The plan that the gang prepared is depicted in the image in front of you. We are now in the implementation phase. The group began gathering the tools they desired. They arrived with a diesel generator and drilling equipment and began digging the tunnel. Of course, the excavation will take at least a few months. During this period, they must address the next problem they will face. Once they had gained access to the treasury, they will be monitored by the heat sensor. Then the alarms will go off. Commander Fernando is also an artist, therefore he embarked on the goal of creating a costume that could conceal their temperature from sensors. After designing it, he went out and bought a thermal camera. He began experimenting with its ability to mask human body heat. Despite the design's success in tests, Fernando was not convinced. The suit, as you can see, was not professional. Sensors can detect them at any time because to their continuous movement inside the safe. Fernando was concerned about this issue, and he was continually thinking of a more secure technique to enter the vault. One day, a wild thought struck him. What if the two tactics, digging tunnels and armed raids, were combined? Instead of entering through the tunnel, they can exit through it. As a result, sensors and alarms will be rendered ineffective. Fernando presented the idea to the group, and everyone appeared surprised and excited. We are now moving on to the next part of the strategy, which is to obtain firearms. Beto Latorre takes on the role of the financier. Beto, as previously reported, has prior gang history. As a result, he was in charge of supplying the weaponry that would be used in the operation. But first and foremost, there is information that you should be aware of. That is, the weapons they will use will be unique. We'll reveal it at the end of the story, so keep this knowledge in mind. There was another challenge to tackle after building the tunnel and delivering weapons. This is to ensure a rapid evacuation from the tunnel when the theft has been completed. The first plan was to escape through the sewer tunnel's entrances. However, they recognized that the police may expect it and hence arrest them. The second option is to just depart via the sewage openings. In reality, they discovered a gap 200 meters from the bank. The brilliant idea is to bring a freight car that has been modified with a bottom entrance. You must now concentrate. When fleeing, the truck will come to a halt above the sewage opening. The thieves will then be able to jump directly inside the car from the sewer without being seen. Now there is something crucial to note. The gang converted the freight truck in a warehouse near Beto's home. The key thing to know is that Beto's wife witnessed the entire gang. They asked, "What is this woman doing here?" He responded, "It's fine. I trust her. Believe me, everything is fine." The gang members met Beto's wife for the first and only time. Keep this lady in mind because she will play a crucial role in the story. After they modified the truck, they hired a driver and named him the Boy. Everything was almost finished. The only thing they require is a simple means to open safe deposit boxes. As a result, engineer Sebastian created a hydraulic device known as the cannon. This tool's purpose was to break the locks of safe deposit boxes in 7 seconds. After all of these preparations and labor, everything was finally ready. We are now on January 13, 2006. Sebastian the engineer was the only one who entered the sewage tunnel. Then he went inside the tunnel that the group had dug. He was able to reach the bank wall using this tunnel. In the meantime, Commander Fernando, Beto the financier, and the violent Luis, they were all gathered in front of the bank. And when they were certain that everything was in order, they invaded the bank with firearms, kidnapping clients and personnel. In the meantime, the bank security in the control room phoned the cops. In only a few minutes, the cops encircled the bank on all sides. Here, Fernando began putting into action what he called the Coco Plan. The plan was to kidnap a hostage. Then he walked out the bank door, pretending to flee. Then he goes back to the bank. When he notices that the cops have encircled the area, the plan's purpose was to mislead the cops, to think that the robbers planned their getaway before they arrived. However, because to their quick response, the plan backfired, trapping criminals inside the bank. They also parked a fake getaway vehicle in front of the bank. As a result, it appears to be a getaway vehicle. The chief of police came on the scene of the incident. The cops informed him that the robbers attempted to flee through the door. But as soon as they noticed the cops encircling the area, they returned to the bank. The police chief assumed the thieves had been trapped. As a result, they are unable to flee anyplace. Let us enter the bank. The gang was in charge of the situation there. Except for one detail, the security guy who had barricaded himself in the surveillance room. They are determined to get him out of there in any manner possible, because he had direct contact with the cops. He'll call the cops if he sees them leaving the bank. Their strategy will fail. They tried to bargain with him, but he refused to quit up no matter what. Then Violent Louis kidnapped one of the bank employees. He then placed his weapon on her head. He started threatening the guard, threatening to kill her if he didn't come out. But he refused until Violent Louis made a promise not to harm anyone. Finally, the guard opened the door and left the surveillance room. Louis searched him and took his phone. Then he led him to the bank's front entrance and told him, "Come out." The guard raised his hands and moved toward the police and special forces who were encircling the area. The security commander asked about the situation on the inside. He informed them that there were 3 armed robbers present. They have approximately 30 hostages. He informed them that they had stolen his phone. And through the bank's windows, the security commander noticed one of the masked robbers holding the phone and waving his hand. And he tells them to call him. In the meantime, Commander Fernando contacted Engineer Sebastian, who was there in the tunnel. He instructed him to drill a hole in the wall of the main treasury of the bank. After a few moments, he became aware of the sound of something moving. It was Fernando, the engineer. He enters the treasury via the tunnel that they built. Engineer Sebastian used the hydraulic cannon tool to enter the bank vault. He began to use it to open safe deposit boxes. In the meantime, Pito, the financier, and Louis the Violent take the captives. They attempt to delay the police for 2 hours, so that the engineer and commander can open as many boxes as possible. In the meantime, Louis the Violent is the guy in charge of negotiating. He was on the phone with the cops. And, as I already stated, Louis, he is brilliant at deception and acting. So he was able to keep the cops at bay for a long time. The police chief asked, "What are your demands? What do you desire?" Louis responded, "To be honest, we entered the bank to rob it, and we wanted to flee quickly, but you surrounded us. We were not expecting this. We don't want to hurt anyone. and we have no idea what to do." Through the bank window, the police chief observed the violent Louis. But what was strange was that Louis seemed relaxed on the phone with him. The police chief was taken aback when he found the individual he was speaking with had experience and a criminal record. Louis had indeed interrupted his thoughts. "Listen, my friend," he said. "I was only recently released from prison. This is not the first time I've stolen. I'm aware of your tricks. As a result, I encourage you not to play with me, because this could result in a disastrous outcome for the captives. And now it's time to say goodbye." Louis hung up the phone on the head of police. This was his manner of demonstrating his command of the situation. As a result, the police are thinking twice about taking action against the group. Louis succeeded in buying time. 2 hours later, since the robbery began, Commander Fernando called Luis. He told him that they would begin implementing the escape plan. Here, Louis used his latest amazing trick called the police chief, and he told him the gang decided to surrender. But in one condition, the police should buy them pizza. The police chief agreed. They will bring pizza, but the violent Louis, ordering pizza from an Italian restaurant, is far from the bank, with the aim of delaying them for as long as possible. After that, Louis cut off all channels of communication with the police. He ordered the hostages to remain on the ground without any movement. He threatened that if anyone took action, he will be shot immediately. During this time, Fernando and Sebastian were in the basement collecting all the spoils in bags. Then they threw these bags through the tunnel they had dug. Louis and Beto quickly joined them. Before they came out of the tunnel, they put their weapons on a piece of cloth. The reason for this movement will be revealed at the end of the story. While they were leaving, they returned the chest of drawers to pass the tunnel opening. They quickly boarded the rubber boats which was waiting for them in the sewer tunnel. Use these boats until they reach the sewer opening, from which they will go directly to the escape car. Immediately, they drove to the safe house, which had been prepared in advance. Upon their arrival, they put the car in the garage, and they unloaded bags of spoils from them. The first thing they did was turn on the TV to watch the news and find out what was happening and whether the police identified them or not. The surprise was that the police did not even storm the bank. The gang members watched the news and laughed as if they were watching a movie. They wanted to see the police's reaction to their genius plan. Let's go back to the police chief. After the pizza arrived, the security forces tried to communicate with Louis several times, but no one answered the phone. The commander decided that it was time to carry out a storming operation. In a few minutes, the special forces were inside the bank, but all they found were the hostages sitting on the ground. The police were unable to find out how the thieves went or how they escaped. They thought that the thieves had hidden among the hostages, so they detained them until they were sure of their identity. Finally, after a period of research and inspection, discovered the hole behind the chest of drawers. But the problem was that they found something in front of them that looked like a bomb. Therefore, they had to call in the bomb squad to examine it. But in the end, they discovered that it was just a fake bomb. Let's go back to the gang's house. At that time, the gang was sharing the spoils. Their spoils, a small structure, consisted of money, gold, and jewelry. The bank said that the amount of the stolen items was estimated at $19 million. Therefore, this is considered the largest bank robbery in the history of Argentina. After dividing the spoils among themselves, the plan was for everyone to go to a different place. They agreed that they would not see each other for the rest of their lives. Of course, they were happy, but one of them would quickly lose everything. The rest will follow him one after another. This person was Beto, the financier. As we have said previously, his wife was aware of the theft. And what happened is that one day, Beto returned home and noticed that one of the loot bags was missing. He asked his wife, and she answered coldly, "Yes, I took 3 or 4 small bags. It contains approximately $100,000. He said to her angrily, "We are trying to stay away from suspicion. How can you take such a large amount without telling me? You will put us in danger." Here Beto decided to hide his spoils elsewhere, but he never expected what his wife would do next. In fact, as soon as he left the house, his wife went directly to the police station. She reported it. The reason for this strange behavior: he's jealous. Yes, jealousy. His wife, she thought he would run away with the money and then marry again. In short, Beto was arrested. And then, He was interrogated, but he refused to reveal the identity of his partners. But with the help of his wife and other evidence, the police were able to identify the entire gang. And they were all arrested. The strange thing is that most of the stolen items were not recovered, where the gang hid it in difficult places. They refused to reveal these places. They were sentenced to prison for a period ranging between 9 and 15 years, but none of them completed their sentence. On the contrary, they were released much earlier because of good behavior and discipline. Each of them spent nearly 2 years in prison. They were then placed under house arrest for 2 years. The punishment was light. The reason for this is the weapons they used. When I told you that their weapons contained something special, finally we will reveal the secret. Those weapons were fake, not real. Imagine that they carried out this crazy operation using fake weapons. In fact, it was a very smart move. Even if they were arrested, their sentence will be reduced, and this is what happened. Insurance companies compensated the bank's customers. If you are here, write in the comment "I am a legend" and you will get a heart immediately. Subscribe to the channel and like the video. This will help our channel to grow. Now goodbye until the next story.